Alright, today our notes are going to be on what is groundwater, and this is video 3. We're also going to look at wetlands, and both wetlands and groundwater are natural filters of our water, and they help clean it as it moves through the soil particles. So they're very important, not only sources of water, but ways to clean water. So groundwater is defined as any water that is found down between cracks, pores, or pores are just openings between sand, gravel, and rocks. And this is going to be below the surface of the earth, so below the ground. When rain falls to the ground, water does not stop moving. Some of it flows along the land surface to streams and lakes. Some of it is taken back up through capillary action by the plants. This weekend, in some places around North Carolina and especially South Carolina, there's been a lot of flooding and runoff, and all that water is ending up back into our very high creeks and streams and rivers, and will eventually end up back in the sounds in the ocean. But the rain we had prior to this weekend came slowly, and a lot of it was able to be absorbed down into the ground, and it can eventually trickle down into the aquifers that sit under the clay here in Wake County. Some water will, when the sun comes back out, will heat up and evaporate and return to the atmosphere. The aquifers are these underground storages of water, and if you look up here at my model, you can see my above ground layer is rocky and then sand, and rocks and sand are good. There's spaces between those particles, and so the water can trickle easily down here. And then I have a layer of these blue marbles to represent the aquifer. Many communities draw water up from these underground aquifers. They drill down through the soil and the rock layer to get down into where the water is stored, and then they pump it up and supply the public with drinking water. And there are community wells, there are town wells, and then there are individuals in rural communities who have their own private wells. Groundwater does get contaminated, just like our surface water gets contaminated by human activity. It becomes polluted. So when we throw chemicals out, we bury them underground. The containers they're in can rust and begin to leak. Or some people will literally just use motor oil. You change your car's oil and you just go throw it out in the woods by your house. And that's going to eventually enter the soil and slide down through the soil layers and end up in the aquifer. And it's very difficult to clean up water that is well below the surface. So groundwater is going to move slowly. It doesn't move nearly as fast as, say, the surface water has this weekend with all the runoff. But gravity is going to pull it down. And our soil right now is saturated, so that water is trickling down into the aquifers. The water table is the very top, right below the surface, and the water table can vary in depth depending on what type of soil is underneath. And some soils are better to allow water to flow through them than others. And the ones that allow water to easily move through them are called permeable soils. And the ones that are more difficult, like some of our clay, because it's so fine grained and the particles are so tightly packed together, are said to be impermeable. Now, wetlands are areas where the water table is at, near, or above the land surface long enough during the year that it can support plants roots can always be sitting in water. And these are called hydric plants and hydric soil. And hydric, remember that root word water, means wet with water. So wetlands are some of the most diverse ecosystems on earth, which means they have a great variety of plants and they have a great variety of animals that live there. Wetlands are natural filters of water in the water cycle. They act like sponges and as they take the water in and let it trickle down, the upper layers of the soil will hold on to the pollutants and not let them filter down. Or if the water is like a stream runs through the wetland, it will collect the pollutants in the soil and the water will run on through. There are 3 distinctive types of wetlands. Swamps is a wetland that has a lot of trees, and northeastern North Carolina has a very large swamp called the Great Dismal Swamp. Bogs are found in our mountains, and the dominant plant species in a bog is peat moss. And marshes would be like the ones we have along the sounds on our coastline, and they are dominated by grasses. We have a lot of salt marshes along our coast. And again, they are great buffers. They slow water down when it's moving at a rapid rate, like it is after a flood and heavy runoff. And they also filter out pollutants and other things that don't belong in the water. And so they're going to slow the water down. The bacteria in the marsh helps to break down things that don't belong in the water. And then as it goes on through, it flows out and it is cleaner than it was when it came in. So wetlands and then the soils that are underground are both natural filters to help remove pollutants and contaminants from the water.